Begin with a look at the Sunday Nation, the splash. It's a story about a probe over lost millions of shillings in the standard gauge railway ticket scandal. There is always a scandal around the corner, Dismas.
You go to SGR.
Yes.
Congratulations, you are a game changer, and I think you are a trendsetter. You've done very well for
Why?
many of
What
your
did
generation.
I do?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And I'm sure there are many more Kenyans who are going to emulate you. And that's what we expect politicians to do, to be role models. But now going to, but now going to SGR and corruption, I think now it's becoming a boring story. And at some stage, we even requested President Kenyatta to set up a commission of inquiry into this accumulated matter of SGR. It seems the case that anybody who is given a responsibility at SGR, they get a silent memo by their side that they must go and steal. And they steal without any limitations. They steal with reckless abandon. When we thought that we had sorted out the land issues and people are going to be held in custody,
yes,
then another scandal comes up. One wonders for how long Kenyans are just going to sit as this happens, when the country's resources are being raped. And maybe it's time for Haji to zoom in into this accumulated matter of SGR once and for all, so that we understand the philosophy behind SGR. That is this SGR supposed to serve morale, or it's a special purpose vehicle for selected public servants to make a lot of money? Because when you look at that headline, even if you don't go into the details, you start yawning, you begin wondering whether you are actually in Kenya or you're in a banana republic.
All right, Mark, this is Kenya's single biggest infrastructure project, the SGR. I understand we pay $1 billion over and above the loan funds. Then we get to see a scandal like this where we understand we could be losing $1 million a day in this ticket scam. I mean, do you think the government is giving it the necessary attention? It's baby, and it is costing the taxpayer a lot of money.
Now, before I answer your question, I have to also give you my personal congratulations. One, on your nuptials, that it takes a strong man to marry. And two, for standing up against vitriol and a tirade of hate speech, of which the people who are guilty of it should feel ashamed and embarrassed. But congratulations to you for being a bigger man, for being the greater man, and choosing the highway when people went low. Now, speaking of lows, SGR having a corruption scandal is a very big low, especially for the president of this republic. Your hallmark investment cannot be riddled with the same disease you're fighting everywhere. It becomes an embarrassment. Secondly, it's a bigger embarrassment because this is loan money that we are playing with. And it's not just loan money we can afford to play with, because we know the Chinese are fully capable of coming into Kenya and owning our port and owning our railway line, and then we essentially become a part colony of China. Therefore, the kind of irresponsibility and immorality needed for you to steal even a shilling from SGR is appalling for a country such as ours. It tells us that there is no one who is focused on putting our country on the right track. There is no one who cares, because at this point we are not only playing around with the 2017-2018 budgets and expenditure, but we are playing around with the futures of our children. This is basically a father going to the bar and drinking his son's school fees. That's essentially what we are doing, because it is our kids who will pay for this SGR, and if we keep playing with it, we will end up with debts and will become a small China, and soon you and I will be required to learn Mandarin as mandatory languages in our schools.
Part of the system. All right, I want us to go into another story so that we can try and look at as much as possible. Husband, there's a story here on page 5 of the Sunday Standard. I'm ready to lead the opposition, says Mudavadi. We've talked about this a lot, and whether Mudavadi, has what it takes to lead the opposition in this country. He says he does. I mean, looking at it, he's the remaining member of that NASA, which was essentially the opposition going into last year's elections. Do you think he has what it takes? This age-old question.
First of all, Ben, let me also congratulate you and welcome back to the show. Whatever you've done is trailblazing, and I hope most of us are getting the cue
Thank you.
Secondly, I think looking at Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, I think he has the stature. He has what it takes to lead the opposition. And I think the current socio-political and economic dispensation gives him that platform, you know. The country is a lot more peaceful, and therefore he can traverse the country and go everywhere. I think the level of political intolerance has reduced to almost zero. So he can go to Kisumu, he can go to Nyeri, he can go all over the country. And because he seems to be the only political heavyweight who does not seem to be part of President Uhuru's government, he offers that divergent opinion, which I think is what many people associate the opposition to be. And essentially, he has, you know, a much more pronounced platform to do that. Now, his only challenge is that, you know, the current constitutional dispensation does not envision that kind of a political leader because he is not in parliament.
Yes.
And therefore, the MPs that he will rely on to push certain things are in parliament, and they might not necessarily, you know, be of the opinion that he might hold on things. And I think that is the only difficult thing that he has to contend with. That for him now to marshal clout outside parliament, he needs parliamentarians who can articulate the same things on the floor of parliament. But generally, I think he has been put in a position where he can easily offer that voice of the common mwananchi when the other political leaders, President Uhuru Kenyatta, the Deputy President, the Right Honorable, and Kalonzo Musyoka, they seem to be speaking the same language. I think it's only Mudavadi who can now either join them with a voice of reason or rally the public against something that is for the greater good of the greater public.
All right, Kipchumba, how do you think he would be able to execute this role, leading the opposition? It's a very amorphous kind of role because in parliament there's only minority and majority, and he's the leader of the ANC, which has a bunch of MPs. How would he execute this role?
Ben, first and foremost, let me join the other panelists in saying congratulations when you are crossing the Rubicon. And I think you have secured a place in the national integration of this country. When that is to finally be told, your position and place will be secured. You will not only have talked about national integration, but walked the path. I wish our politicians can emulate one or two from you.
Thank you.
And back to the germane issue, when we discuss Musalia Mudavadi, where we sit today, I look at Musalia Mudavadi as the most promising opposition politician because the rest, most of them are in a fridge somewhere, in a freezer, to be very honest with you. But now, I also liken Mudavadi to a cricket somewhere in a dark room or to a frog in a dark path because he only speaks and he doesn't act. We are used to a towering opposition leader like Raila Odinga. For him now, he needs to reorganize himself and realize that he has been bestowed a mandate which is not constitutional, but it is a moral mandate. Kenyans feel that he should be the voice of reason. When everything is not happening, he should be the one talking. We have seen him talk a lot in the past few days, but he must now go and discuss issues. We must see him now telling us this is where he must be the palm of the nation in terms of those who are not within the networks of government.
All right.
And I am hoping that he will not collapse to the tendency of being a kijana wa mkono very soon. That is my hope.
All right. We'll wait to see how that pans out. We did say that this was Kalonzo's big moments before he was given a job. So we're hoping, we're waiting to see whether Musalia Mudavadi will indeed stick to his promise of being the leader of opposition. Now, on page 2 of the Sunday Standard, Gideon Moi, the Baringo senator, was in Murang'a yesterday. I think it was a funeral to the father of the Kasarani MP, Mercy Gakuya. Of course, funerals in this republic are political events. He did call on leaders to be on the front line in advocating for peace and unity and improving the living standards of Kenyans. This must very quickly, Senator Moi has been talked about in the 2022 matrix. What is your take on his seeming inroads in central Kenya now?
Well, there are many people who would like to wish Senator Gideon Moi away and say that he's holding rallies at his father's bedroom or boardroom, and that is his core competence. But one would be very naive to treat Senator Moi in that manner. you can never, ever ignore a politician, as we've said times above number, even if it means that he has only one vote. And then Senator Gideon Moi has grown up in a political family. When his father was taking decisions, he was around the corner. He was probably seated at the same table when his father was doing matrices, permutations, and combinations. So he understands politics very well. And we are also made to understand that he's got a very fat bank balance. So somebody with that kind of a resource is somebody that you cannot afford to ignore. That even people are claiming that the current crisis in Rift Valley around maize is occasioned by him. That is the one who is setting up that fire. So in my view, anybody who says Senator Gideon Moi is not going to be a factor in 2022 will be doing that at their own peril. And it's interesting that when he went to Central Province, that was his first time in Boda Boda. And he admitted that that was his first time in Boda Boda. And he claimed to have enjoyed that trip, which is very interesting. But again, he should now have a conversation with Dr. Matiang'i to understand that this kind of photo is unacceptable because, you know, it's very risky. It doesn't have any safety features. What would happen if this rider decides to venture into mischief and, you know, an abrupt stop or he tries to swerve, Senator Gideon Moi would be in trouble. So I'm hoping that the way Dr. Matiang'i has said that he's going to nip in the bud the mischief occasioned by border borders is actually going to implement it because these border borders are a menace.
All right.
But you see now the last point is about his logistics. I went through this story and I'm unable to understand. I was able to land in this particular field and his vehicle was not around. Maybe the fellas in charge of his logistics have got a case to answer.
All right. Mark, Central Kenya seems to be up for grabs for this 2022 presidential hopefuls. We only know about, for sure, with the Deputy President William Ruto, who has been trying to make inroads there. There has been problems with the president in that. Where is Gideon Moi's place in that Central Kenya vote?
Gideon Moi just needs two things, two ingredients to become a very viable candidate. First, he needs a strategy, okay? I think his brand and political strategists are asleep, if they exist, because he has the wherewithal to make a very big impact on this country. And I'll dare tell him that a picture on a motorbike is not exactly as impactful as it once was a few years back. What he needs to do is to sit down and discover that if he's going to put himself as a viable candidate for 2022, he must begin to show the capacity to be able to address the issues that affect the common Mwananchi. He not only needs to be able to speak our Swahili, he also needs to be able to speak our pain, our passions, and our potential. He needs to address that. The second thing that he needs is he needs to use his vast economic muscle to win friends. In fact, I will quote for him the Bible when it says, use unrighteous mammon to win friends. What he needs to do is he needs to begin to spend quite a big chunk of the purse that he has to win friends. That means he needs to employ people across counties and constituencies to begin to sing his song in the markets and bars and the churches, where we all have political discussions. If Gideon Moi does that, then he stands a very good chance of winning the Kikuyu, all-important Kikuyu vote. Why is that vote important? Because for the first time in nearly 20 years, the Kikuyu do not have a hat in this game. They do not have, their ball is no longer in play. And as such, what they're looking for is the best deal. Who is the person who will protect the Mount Kenya interest the best? And by Mount Kenya interest, I mean the top of Mount Kenya and the bottom of that Mount Kenya pyramid. Who will protect them the best? If he can position himself as such, then he stands a very good chance to win that particular vote.
All right. Speaking of which, very closely related to that, Hesbon, there's a story on page 18 of the Sunday Nation. Ruto Mudavadi courting Martha Karua, she rebrands NARC Kenya. Associates of the two leaders, the Deputy President and Mudavadi, attended a NARC Kenya event on Friday night, used the platform to Martha Karua to consider coalition options with them ahead of 2022, ahead of the 2022 presidential election. From where you sit, do you think Martha Karua will be a big factor in this?
Well, I think you cannot wish anyone away, especially from Central Kenya, for the simple reason that it is increasingly becoming clear that it's the only region that does not seem to be having a political figurehead in post-Uhuru Kenyatta's presidency. And we've seen the way politicians regenerate from the Mount Kenya region. I mean, most of us ruled out President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2002 after he lost. In 2007, he was supposed to present his nomination papers to ODM. He did not. And we were not seeing any strong Mount Kenya leader from the Mount Kenya region entirely. But then in 2013, Uhuru rebranded, emerged, and he was a very powerful political candidate. So you actually look at a situation where the deputy president and Musalia Mudavadi are looking at somebody who has a political history, who can easily amass a political cloud. And I think there is nowhere where that has happened within a short period of time, you know, other than central Kenya. So you can look at the history of Martha Karua and say that she's a very powerful politician with very, you know, good track record in grassroots mobilization. And given a national prominence, we've seen the central region just rally around anyone who appears to be closer to power.
Kipchumba, what does your crystal ball tell you about central Kenya? Martha Karua has been touted. Peter Kenneth has been trying to rebuild his political empire. There has been talk of Mwangi Kiunjuri as being the next in line. What is your take?
Ben, look at it this way. You know, the Mount Kenya political enclave is made of very many facets. If today you are to introduce Martha Karua in a chess game, you are taking away Anne Waiguru and other people, Mwangi Kiunjuri. Well. So any political player must ask himself or herself this question, that as I bring on board Martha Karua, what political asset is she? Because again, she is a firebrand, she has a reform history, but going forward, that might not be the only credential we need. For if you are building a strong political brand, you need people who you will build a brand around, who are not only reform credentials. Because look at it this way, in the last election, NASA had a reform credential studded ground, but it did not bring forth the vote. So we need to ask ourselves going forward. Even if today you are to ask Musalia Mudavadi, yes, you might want to bring Martha Karua on board, you will get some votes from the tribal enclave and from the Kirinyaga County, the 140,000 votes she got there, and a few others. But the question is, you need to ask yourself, there are new boys in the game. There is Mwangi Wairia from that place. We also have Ngirishu around the Kirinyaga County, and you also have Minji. These are brands that have emerged past Martha Karua. The other point you need to ask yourself, as you do that, there are the Kiambu big bulldogs. There is Moses Kuria, there is Waititu, and there is the old man there, Kafogo. You need to ask yourself, as you place them there, it's like creating a team. Do you want to create a team of players with past glory, or you want to create a team with players that can play well going into the future?
Let me see what Mark and Disma say about this. Mark, from where you sit, who is the man or lady to beat in that? There are two iron ladies. Which one is most viable?
Now, well, according to IEBC, definitely Waiguru, aka Minji, has a lead on Martha Karua. But let's not forget one thing. Martha Karua to this day is a woman who, when she speaks, the nation listens. She has a national appeal, and it would be quite foolish to assume that she is gone, much like one William Kafogo. Kafogo today, who we thought was gone and buried under the Waititu wave, today there is the statement, Kafa Kafogo. What does that mean? We wish Kafogo was back. Today, if you look at the Kenyan Parliament and indeed Senate, which one of us can honestly say that we don't want Martha Karua back there? If she was in Parliament today, we probably would already have the one-third gender rule implemented. That's the kind of metal that Martha Karua is. And let me finish. Let's also be very honest that we've seen many appointments across this country into various boards. Which one of us, if Martha Karua was put in charge of your parastatal, in charge of your particular department in government, wouldn't you be sure ensure that things will be streamlined. So let's be very clear. The politics of this country and how we vote does not necessarily reflect on competence. Now, if anyone has learnt anything, especially from this cabinet, you'd rather have one Matiangi, one Martha Karua than 22 other people who do very little. That is the reality.
Right.
So we need to consider moving forward whether we need the Martha Karuas of this world or we need the flower girls and flower boys that we see today.
All right. You want to say something?
There's something we must realize, that as you craft a national election vehicle, you craft a vehicle that more people will identify with it. I am not sure if today you are to put their personalities and whatever they have done in the past notwithstanding, if you are to put Minji and Martha Karua in a national table, yes, while Martha Karua might bring some discourse about national issues, but in terms of the vote, I will go with Anne Waiguru.
All right.
Ben, you know, these gentlemen have been hogging my space.
All right.
And I think when you look at Martha Karua,
yes,
it would be erroneous to look at Martha Karua as just Martha Karua.
Yes.
You are supposed to be looking at Martha Karua as the philosophy behind her. And who says that Martha Karua is coming alone? Martha could be the representation of Kavogo and the rest of the people who are tired of the status quo. Because believe you me, there are so many people in Central Province. Right now, if you mention Kumira, they'll slap you. They'll give you a beating. You could even end up incarcerated.
There are those people, Dismas, who say that Martha Karua made the ultimate political mistake in 2013 when he went against the wave that was President Uhuru Kenyatta, and maybe that was the last nail on the coffin. Do you agree?
Well, having made that mistake and realized that it's a mistake, now that's the kind of asset you need in your organization.
Right.
Because she's been there, she's made mistakes, she's been punished for the same mistakes, and she's unlikely to repeat the same mistakes.
She's done it all.
And you need that in a team. And it's very interesting that the people who are now interested in Martha Karua is William Samoei Ruto and Musalia Mudavadi. And there are some people are claiming those are going to be the strong candidates in 2022.
Yes.
So does it mean that there is something William Samoei Ruto has seen in Martha Karua, and there is something that Musalia Mudavadi has seen in Martha Karua? And if you look at the history of Martha Karua, she's one hell of a brave woman in Kenya. You recall, she's the first politician who displayed her displeasure as President Moi by walking out of President Moi's rally. And she was referred at some stage as the only male cabinet minister in Kibaki's administration. So that's a lady, even if she's made mistakes, you cannot ignore her.
All right, indeed, we'll see how that plays out as the political intrigues ahead of 2022 continue. Let's take a quick commercial break here on Sunday edition right now. When we come back, we'll take a look at the elusive two-thirds gender rule, the debate 8 years after promulgation of the Constitution. That rule, that is still a mirage. The Gender Bill 2015, of course, provides that not more than 2/3 of members of appointive of elective positions are of the same gender. It has come up for debate in Parliament this week. This coming week, members will be voting just what gives. Don't go too far.